Hi, I'm John. Welcome back to Hengebeck Studio. Today I want to show you a project we did some time ago, which generated a lot of interest, and it is the super secret bookcase door. Now, it definitely caught the imagination of a lot of you, and it was a lot of fun to make, so I thought we would just go through it and I will show you the secrets of the secret door. Right, so there's a bunch of different ways which you can approach something like this, and it's definitely going to depend on your individual circumstances, the location, your budget, and just exactly how secret it needs to be. This particular project was meant to just be a bit of fun, really. It's in a hallway, and it's going to spend most of its time open. So for that reason, we tried to keep it as simple as possible, with the aim that it would be easy to maintain and service throughout its life. One of the largest considerations you have with something like this is the weight. Basically, books are heavy. So if you've got a full shelf of hardback books or magazines, that's 50 kilos per linear meter. So our shelves were 800 millimeters wide. There's 7 shelves. That's 280 kilos, which is a lot of weight, plus the actual bookcase itself and the mechanisms. So yeah, it soon mounts up, and as soon as that weight distorts anything, it's just not going to function correctly, so you've got to bear that in mind. The weight is the main reason why you don't often see these bookcases done that are like fully laden with real books. They tend to be fake books or just fronts, or a bit like what we did, which is some books, some ornaments, some photographs. Just keeps the weight down and makes the whole thing manageable. Alright, once you have all that worked out, you can make a start. Now, there's quite a lot of calculations to do just to make sure everything functions properly and you've got all your widths and measurements worked out just right. If you're more interested in just the mechanism, I'd probably skip this bit, but if you want to see how it's all done, then yeah, let's get into it. Begin with the width of your opening, the overall width. You need to take this width and allow for your architrave and trim. Okay, so here we've got a 937mm wide opening with a 74mm architrave and 5mm of bookshelf showing. This makes the inside dimensions 779, right? Next, you've got to consider the thickness of your bookcase frame. In this example, it's 21mm. That's okay, provided you're using a decent hardwood, but if it's softwood, I would up that to 27mm or something like that. Now take the proposed depth of the shelves. The depth is important. The deeper it is, obviously, the bigger books you're going to be able to film there, but the harder it's going to be to get that clearance for the door to open without binding, so bear this in mind. You could mock this up in real life, or just like I'm doing in CAD here, or just draw it out on some cardboard. The outer frame's got to have enough clearance so it won't bind. I've given this one 5mm either side. As long as it doesn't bind, the position of the frame isn't too important, as all it's doing really is providing a surface to fix your architrave to. You'll find that depending on the size of the architrave, there's a limit as to how deep your bookcase can be, and you just have to play around a little bit here to suit your needs. And then the last thing to look at would be the tolerance gap you've got to leave on the top or the bottom. This is going to be determined by your pivot hinge hardware, so it's fairly obvious. So you don't want it too big. So we start by building the frame, and then we put the T&G cladding on, followed by a sheet of plywood. I think I used 12mm or 1/2 inch, and then you need to fix through the plywood into the bookcase and shelves. There's a lot of fixings, like 1 screw every 100mm or 4 inches. This is a really important part to give the structure some strength and to properly brace it, to help it with all that weight. It's really similar to how a timber frame structure works. So build your outer case or lining now, and then fit your pivot hinges. You should now be able to test that the door opens properly and that there isn't any other issues. So, okay, now we can look at the trims or the architrave. Some sections of your trim are going to be fixed to the frame as usual, and others are going to be fixed to the door, or the bookcase, and open with it. You'll see in my example I've used these plinth blocks. Now these serve a really important purpose as they're a way of breaking up the joints to allow for the separation between the trims. The trim on the hinge side stays fixed to the frame. The trims on the opposite side will open with the door. So this stops any binding problems. And at the top you've got a small 2mm gap, which to be honest it really isn't noticeable, especially if you've got dark stained timber. And that's really it. So I would get all this put together and just make sure that you've got perfect clearances, so nothing's going to bind before you start getting carried away with the mechanism. Alright, congratulations if you made it that far. So now you should be all set and ready for the mechanism. So here we go, let's get into it. Alright, first thing you need to do is get yourself a book. It wants to be something about this size, hardback, 30 to 40mm wide, definitely no narrower. And then what we need to do is measure how thick it is, and we need to make some timber that's going to sit inside here. So what I've done is I've got some plywood that I've just glued together, and yeah, then I just chop that up, so you'll see. That's my plywood block. It wants to be the same thickness as the pages of your book, because we're going to cut some of those pages away and the block gets glued in there in its place, and that is what houses your components within the book. Size wise, something like 3/4 or a little bit higher than 3/4 of the height of your book, that'll be totally fine. Then just offer it up. Make sure you get the book the right way up, so the block goes to the bottom. So on there, the top of the book is on the left hand side there. And then we're going to take this to the bandsaw. It's a little bit tricky cutting the pages like this. It does kind of want to bind a little bit on the blade, so just go steady and take it easy. It's not like cutting timber. You definitely got to take a little bit more time with it. We're now going to we're going to get the components, and we need to basically make a bit of space within the block for them. So I'm just kind of roughly drawing around it. It doesn't need to be too specific. The only bit that's sort of specific is this hinge here, because when the hinge is fixed into the block, it needs to finish perfectly flush with the bottom of the block. That's quite important. And then back to the bandsaw and trim those out. And on here, where the hinge goes, there was the little sort of like nub of pages there. That was kind of it was kind of bumping into the knuckle of the hinge, so I couldn't get the hinge quite where I wanted it to be. Because you want the knuckle to be as close to the outside edge like that as possible, because otherwise when you try and pivot the book or pull the book, it's just going to kind of bind on the shelf. Once that's all done, we can glue it in. I think I just used PU glue, nothing fancy. Any glue's fine, doesn't really matter. That's how it should look. And then get out the clamps. Right, so cutting the side away, I did this really just so you could kind of see what's going on. It depends on where the pulley's going to be positioned within your design. If it's behind a panel or something like that, you wouldn't need to cut anything away, or you probably won't need to cut anywhere near as much as that away. And just start fitting your components. Hinge, like I said, as tight as to the edge as possible, and make sure it's flush, because if it's proud, it's going to kind of sit up on the shelf, which will be a bit of a giveaway. You don't want to do that. Okay, so there's the latch. Heavy duty latch, ideally, something with a decent spring in it. That will help matters, because that's kind of what will pull the book into position. And I'm just 3D printing a lever. You don't need to 3D print something. You could easily make something out of plywood, or you could make it out of a bit of metal. Don't do that. It doesn't need to be 3D printed. You can just see this is what I've done, but as long as it does the same thing, that's fine. And it's just a case of connecting it all up now. I think when I did this on the real job, I printed 2 of those levers, so there's one either side of the spindle. That kind of stops the spindle falling out. So if you haven't got something doing that, I would recommend just taking some sort of steps to make sure the spindle isn't going to kind of work its own way out on its own. And then once that's done, there we go. That's it. That's all there is to it. Yeah. All right, so that's it. That's the whole secret. What I did to sort of obscure this mechanism on my job was I built a tiny little panel across there, and then I just cut out the back of some books and had those in there as well, just to hide it. And that's that. I did that just so it was easily accessible for the future as well, because like I say, it didn't need to be super duper secret. What you could do if you wanted to do a little bit sort of more obscured than that would be to have the whole mechanism behind the back panel, and then that way this book can be wherever you want it and that's all hidden away. But the other thing on our job was the back side of the door faced into another room, and that was also kind of like a fake wall, so we couldn't have had anything shown on that side. And the way we opened it from the other side was we had a picture on a pivot with a cable attached to it, and that cable ran through back onto this same mechanism, so you just push the picture to the side, and that's how the door opens from the other side. So yeah, that is it. Okay, hope that was useful, and check out some of our other stuff. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.